Hello, my name is Freddie Salmon Mijage from Edukea Tanzania. I'm a history teacher of advanced level. Welcome in this session. We are proceeding with our topic, which is the rise of capitalism in Europe. And we are proceeding with our first subtopic, which is the transition from feudalism to agrarian revolution. And the main concern with where we are proceeding with the factors for the rise of capitalism. We are in factor number 6, which is primitive accumulation of capital. And the last lesson we saw the 5th factor for the rise of capitalism, which was the Black Death or bubonic plague. So welcome to continue with another factor, which is primitive accumulation of capital. What is primitive accumulation of capital? This was referred to the process of concentrating of large sum capital in fewer hands by using illegal ways in accumulating it. It means that primitive accumulation of capital, these were the system or process in which capital was accumulated in fewer hands of people by using illegal ways to accumulate that capital. And you have to remember that during all the period when capitalism came into being, the merchants used illegal ways to ensure that they are acquiring enough capital. Some of the ways which they were used during that time or during the era of primitive accumulation of capital was enclosure system, piracy, looting and plundering churches' land. And in the previous lessons we saw all those things, especially enclosure system and plundering, looting, piracy. But I'm going to repeat. The enclosure system, it were the forceful eviction of lands from the landlords, safety and tenants to enclose that land to make the large plantation for agricultural production and industrial activities. But another illegal way which were used by that time, it was piracy that was done in the sea. It means this piracy was done by the armies of a particular nations to attack another country to plunder or to pillage that their capital or goods which they had in that on their ships in the sea. Another was looting. It is just like piracy, but it is done in the land, not in the sea. And the plundering churches' land. This was taking of the church's land and the landlord's land in order to give the merchants the power to own that land. So this was number 6. Primitive accumulation of capital. So in which sense primitive accumulation of capital led to the rise of capitalism? All those capitals which were accumulated by using illegal ways led to that capital to be reinvested in various activities like industrial activities and the agricultural activities that led to the increase of production, hence it is stimulated to the development of capitalism in Europe. Another factor or cause of the rise of capitalism in Europe was political revolutions. What is political revolutions? Refers to the fundamental changes by which a certain system of government was completely overthrown and replaced by a new system. It means that these were the revolutions which were conducted by the people to overthrow the unconservative, which done by the people to overthrow the conservative government or ruling system and to replace a new system which is needed by the majority. This took place from 17th up to 18th centuries. It means it was between 1 century This when political revolutions took place. For example, French Revolution in 1789. In France occurred political revolution where King Louis the 16th were overthrown with his wife Maria Antoinette, and to replace the new system of government. But also in 1917, Russian Revolution occurred in Russia, which led by their leader Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. So in these revolutions which took place by that time, those leaders come up with various strategies to ensure that the system or the modes of production which were practicing by that time must be discarded, and to introduce new system which is capitalism. So in the political revolutions that took place by that time gave the chance for the capitalism to come into being. Let us proceed with another factor, which is peasant revolts. These were rebellions waged by peasants against the feudal lords in Europe demanding high wages. It means peasant revolts. These were wars or rebellions that were waged by the peasants themselves against the landlords who were exploiting, oppressing them through paying of rent and low wages. So those feudal lords are being weakened by the peasants because due to the prolonged revolts and the strikes done by the peasants. So in that sense, the feudal modes of production become slowing down in the production and the operation. And that peasant revolts occurred almost in the 14th century. For example, in 1381, Wat Taylor led a revolt in England. We see here that person led the peasant revolt in 1381 in England. So you can see how landlords were facing various revolts from peasants demanding high wages to be paid for that work they were doing for those landlords. So even that factor led to the rise of capitalism in Europe. Another factor, it was growth of towns. As you know that during that time, various towns were grown or were made in cities like Liverpool, Manchester, Bristol, Amsterdam, and others. So in which sense that those towns led to the development of capitalism in Europe? In those towns, people who were practicing feudal mode of production in rural areas, they migrated from rural areas to urban areas, and they started to involve themselves in various economic activities like carpentry, shoes production, and other crafts activities. So in that sense, the production of the products which were produced were being sold to other people to be consumed. So that activity or that processes led to the process of commercial activity. And at the same time, those towns acted as the trading centers for those products which were being produced. And the population which were settled in urban areas acted as a source of labor in the plantations and the industries which were established during that time. So you can see how the growth of towns led to the rise of capitalism. The last factor, but not the least, it is the rise and development of monetary economy. On how? The monetary economy led to the rise of capitalism in the sense that The tenants or peasants who migrated from the rural areas to urban areas, they started to produce various goods, and those goods were not meant for substantial consumption rather than for sale or commercial activities. So those peasants who produced those goods were sold or invested them in commercial activities, and they got wealth, and that wealth were reinvested in various economic activities like industry and the agriculture sector. So in that sense, those activities which were reinvested by those peasants by using their capital or wealth which were collected or accumulated during that time led to the rise of capitalism. So, in the factors that led to the rise of capitalism, I've written only 10, so you can search more and more. So we have finished the first topic, which is the transition from feudalism to agrarian revolution. Welcome to another subtopic, which is the rise of mercantilism. It is the second topic of our first topic. So we can see what is mercantilism. I've told you that the rise of mercantilism is the second subtopic in our topic. So what is mercantilism? Mercantilism refers to the first stage or phase in the development of capitalism, which involved the overseas trade, whereby bullions, that is gold and silver, were the major concern. It refers that mercantilism was the first stage in the development of capitalism, whereby overseas trade were conducted, and the bullions, which is gold and silver or precious metals, gold and silver, were the major concern. So those merchants who traveled from their motherland to outside world were going there to find those precious metals, which is gold and silver, which acted as a prestige to the European nation. By that time, or during the mercantile era, a European country which were owning a large amount of gold and silver considered as a strong nation and a prestigious country. So every European nation struggled as much as he or she can to get those precious metals. And mercantilism, it started from 15th to 18th centuries in Europe. You can see it conducted within 3 centuries as a periodization. Let us see the characteristics of mercantilism after seeing the definition of mercantilism. What were the characteristics of mercantilism, or how you can identify that this is actions of mercantilism? The first characteristic was national unification or national unifications. National unifications resulted in various areas. For example, I can define it, national unification, as this was the process of unifying smaller states into a single nation or country. For example, in 1871, Germany came up and joined together various states like Prussia, Styria, Hanover, Frankfurt, and the other states, which were 360 states, to form Germany. So you can see those states which were unified. The main aims of doing so was to increase or to expand the market within that nation, which was supposed to be unified. Another example was Italy unification, which involved the unification of various states or smaller states to form Italy in 1870. Another characteristics of mercantilism was Burionism. What is Burionism? Burionism was the process of accumulating precious metals by merchants. And those precious metals, I have told you that was gold and silver. And those bullions were the major concern of every European nation by that time. And any nation to be super or to be stable and strong country must have large amount of gold and silver. So by that time, or during the mercantile era, bullionism was the major concern or major activity. Another characteristic was protectionism. How protectionism was featured during mercantile era. Protectionism was introduced by respective country for their various purposes. For example, in England, the leaders of that nation was introduced the protectionism policy for the purpose of forbidding rival nations or enemy nations to trade with England. So you can see, protecting England to do trading activities with rival nations was the main characteristic during the mercantile era. And the leaders or the government decided to employ huge tariffs or high tariffs to those exporters, the nation which wanted to export goods in any nation. For example, in Britain or in England. England imposed high tariffs to the exporters. So their aim was to protect their market and not to be interfered by other rival nations or enemy nations. So you can see protectionism was another characteristic of mercantilism. Another feature was expansionism. Expansionism occurred whereby European nations expanded their borders to search for colonies in order to increase or to maximize their profit making. For example, Britain expanded her border where you got various colonies like West Indies, Canada, New Zealand, and the other areas with the aim of increasing the interest and the production to be high. Another feature of or characteristic of mercantilism was militarism. Militarism was another feature of mercantilism. In which sense? During the mercantile era, the military or armies were in high need because those armies were responsible and important in protecting the nation, and the merchants, while they are in their journey traveling to other nations to search for market and those bullions. But also that armies were there to pillage the rival nations and to accumulate that precious metals and the other properties which they add in their ships in the sea. So you can see the role which played by the military, which were established or introduced during the mercantile era. So the militarism was another characteristic of mercantilism. For example, Elizabeth or Queen Elizabeth I of England introduced the army which defeated Spain and France in the whole process of getting the colonies. Another feature was circumnavigation. Circumnavigation was the process whereby merchants were traveling across the world, means they were rotating the world, searching for the new areas. For example, in 1492, Christopher Columbus, in his journey in the sea, go directly to New World, which is known as now or by now as America. So due to the discovery of New World by Christopher Columbus in 1492 led to the inviting of his mother country to come in America and invest in various economic activities like industries and agricultural sector. So you can see that was another feature of mercantilism. But another example was Vasco da Gama, who came in Africa, and Bartholomew Diaz. And there are many merchants who traveled across the world to discover new areas. And the last one, or the last feature of mercantilism, was unequal exchange. Unequal exchange, this was the process of exchanging goods, whereby European nations or European merchants were using or were exchanging the less value goods like mirror, belts, gunpowder, and other priceless goods with high value goods from Africa like gold, silver, diamond, ivory, animal skins, and slaves. So this unequal exchange was a major or was another characteristic during mercantile era. You can see how merchants used the unequal exchange to accumulate large amount of capital from different areas like gold and silver, as were billions of any nation to be superpower or to be strong. Yes, so after looking the characteristics of mercantilism, there is exercise here. Only 2 questions, so you have to ask yourself or discuss in groups. The first question is explain the factors for the rise of capitalism in Europe. The second question is, with vivid examples, describe the characteristics of mercantilism. Thank you for looking me or listening to me. We'll meet you on the next session.
Purchase your tracks today.